SummerSlam is done and dusted, along with, we hope, several feuds. Before we go on, be sure to check out our video on the best and worst moments. But one feud in particular could be the Becky Lynch vs Natalya saga, as even with Natalya being the hometown hero, the crowd was almost split between the two, which caused some surprise reactions with backstage officials on how much support she had across the border. According to Brad Shepard, yeah, we know, please don't shoot the messenger, he tweeted, "I'm told that people in the gorilla position are surprised by the positive reaction to Becky Lynch. They thought she may be booed out of the building since Natalya is from Canada." Well, those who booed the third generation star might be happy to note that WWE will be moving on from the feud. However, in the illustrious words of Goldberg, who's next? Now, the only logical opponent for a feud to build to Hell in a Cell would be Sasha Banks. But where is Sasha Banks, we hear you say? She wasn't at SummerSlam as you predicted. Well, whilst many sources reported on Banks' guaranteed return at SummerSlam, with Brad Shepard even reporting that the Snapchat stories of her being at home was all a clever ruse, and she was indeed backstage, WWE may hold off her long-awaited return to tonight's edition of Monday Night Raw. Brad Shepard tweeted, "Sasha update. She's there and she brought her in-ring gear. I'm still not sure if she's doing anything tonight or one of those other shows in Toronto this week, but I'd presume tonight, which was being written during the show itself. It's not likely now." Now, it made perfect sense not to have a return at SummerSlam, as WWE almost always likes to hold off any predictable returns or debuts until the night after a major pay-per-view. Just look at the return of Bobby Lashley the day after WrestleMania 34, or the debut of Lars Sullivan the day after WrestleMania 35. It's a known swerve that WWE likes to pull now and then. Hopefully, if she does return tonight on Monday Night Raw, this could be the beginning of a program leading up to Hell in a Cell, or even the Survivor Series. Next up, some Bray Wyatt Backstage Notes. Now, last night, Bray Wyatt stunned a sold-out Scotiabank Arena, as well as millions across the globe on television when he re-debuted as The Fiend. WWE choreographed his entrance to near perfection. As a masked Bray Wyatt entered to a remixed version of his Live in Fear theme song, remixed by the band Code Orange. They tweeted, "Let him in, proud to set the tone for The Fiend from here on out. #hurt, #heal. Wyatt also came out with a terrifyingly creepy lantern that was modelled around a decapitated head of Bray Wyatt, as in his previous gimmick. The eyes were sewn shut and the mouth wide open. The lantern seemed to be inspired by Alice in Chains' hit song Man in a Box, in which their cover art also shows a man with his eyes sewn shut. It also may have been there to signify that the old Bray Wyatt is dead, and here you go, here's his head. Next up, is Edge returning to wrestle? Last night, fans were treated with a great surprise from Toronto's own rated R superstar Edge, who interrupted Elias during his performance and out of nowhere delivered a fantastic spear. Since this is the first wrestling move he's delivered since WrestleMania 27, the night before he retired, does it mean that Edge is cleared for physical action? Could he go the way of Daniel Bryan and return even though he initially had a career-ending injury? Sadly, don't get your hopes up, as this isn't the case. He recently spoke on whether he can ever return for one more match. "I got inundated, man. I got he's back, so you know he can come back, right?" I was like, oh my god, we're gonna get into this again. I will once again and for the last time say this. I greatly appreciate that people would like to see me have one more match, or come back, or Daniel Bryan got cleared so why can't you? I will never be cleared. Mine is a completely different injury. He had neck issues, but it wasn't his neck issues that retired him initially. It was the concussion issues. I never had concussion issues. What I have is cervical spine stenosis. Look it up. I have stupid neck. Just look it up. You can look up stupid neck and it will probably be a picture of my neck. Just do me a favor. Look it up and then you will realize that the WWE will never medically clear me to compete again. And I appreciate it, but that's all there is to that. But even though it was brief, Edge was a mixed bag of emotions, posting his thoughts on Instagram after his appearance saying, "This week was emotionally tumultuous. I hadn't been back to Toronto since my mom's funeral. I'd been putting off coming up here and taking care of some things. But when I heard SummerSlam was in Toronto and I knew Beth had NXT work to do, I decided it was time to come home. It was difficult, it was draining, it was therapeutic, it was cathartic. I saw some family, I saw some friends, cried a little, laughed a lot, found some things I thought were lost forever. Last night I had one of those fairy tale moments. I was also reminded that no matter what happens in life, this will always be home. Our next story looks at some AEW news, as it seems that they've only shown 40% of its actual roster. So far, All Elite Wrestling has shown some of its impressive talent at its pay-per-view Double or Nothing, as well as shows such as Fyter Fest and Fight for the Fallen. Top talent includes the likes of Jon Moxley, who unveiled himself to a stunned audience at Double or Nothing, former WWE superstar Shawn Spears, who turned in a big way on Cody by giving him a chair shot to the head at Fyter Fest. They've signed wrestling veterans and future Hall of Famers like Chris Jericho and Christopher Daniels. With a roster of a respectable 46 wrestlers, AEW is still outnumbered by the 200 plus wrestlers that are currently signed with WWE. Whilst the saying goes it's quality not quantity, don't think AEW is sleeping on its roster, as Cody recently mentioned that only 40% of it has actually been unveiled to fans. A fan on Twitter recently asked Cody, "I can't believe you let Vince get Goldberg. You need some big monsters in AEW. It's all cool seeing the people 250 pounds plus having great matches, but you need some 300/400 plus pounders in there as well. Get Psycho Sid." Cody replied, "We want/have modern wrestlers. Big ones at that, no disrespect intended to the heritage and those who paved the road. 2019. He then went on to ask, "You got Luchasaurus and Shawn Spears. Everyone else is small. I do love AEW and will watch it, just thought I'd send you my thoughts." Cody gave his last reply with, "We've revealed about 40% of the roster. Sometimes it's better to let the painter paint and then judge the picture. Who do you think could still sign with AEW leading up to All Out as well as its television debut on TNT? Please let's just only keep it to a handful of people commenting CM Punk down below, otherwise our spam folder will be tremendously hard to clear out." But whilst we're on the topic of AEW's roster, a former ECW/WWE superstar has signed with them, as AEW announced this morning on Twitter in an awesome vignette featuring WWE Hall of Famer Jake the Snake Roberts, who dropped in a clever mention of his worst promo in history at the infamous Heroes of Wrestling show, delivering the line,
"You want to play 21? Well, I got 22.
He sat with a lady at the table wearing a mask, and it turns out to be none other than veteran women's wrestler Jazz. Now you might be aware that Jazz started a wrestling career in ECW, no, not that one, where she wrestled a number of intergender matches with the likes of Steve Corino and Simon Diamond, and later went on to wrestle in WWE as part of Teddy Long's faction, and ultimately becoming two-time women's champion. She returned to WWE for a brief stint in 2006, but went back to the independent circuit and now AEW. Jazz will be a participant in the Casino Battle Royal, which takes place at All Out. This might be a small win for AEW, as Jazz is currently not on good terms with WWE, as she was named as part of the class action lawsuit that was filed against WWE for concussion-related injuries, which has now been appealed. Moving on, a forgotten stable. WWE has been testing a number of things on both Raw and SmackDown Live, which now no longer exist. The wildcard rule as well as Raw's dark mode in Hour 3 have quietly been phased out. Something else that could have been possibly cancelled quietly was an odd stable that included EC3, Bobby Roode and Cesaro, as during a July episode of Main Event, all three came out together and called themselves Main Event Musclemen, which in all honesty sounds like a low-rent Chippendales company. Well, regardless of the name, it seems that they are no more, according to Dave Meltzer. I have heard zero about EC3 or Bobby Roode or that stable. I think it was an idea that they were doing an experiment with, and it just never moved forward. Just one of those things that gets cast off as creative churned, and there were new people brought in to run the different brands. We'll have to see what the future of EC3, Cesaro and Roode are under Paul Heyman and or Eric Bischoff. In our opinion, they could have kept the stable going for at least a few weeks, as apart from Cesaro's brief push and feud with Aleister Black, both Roode and EC3 have done absolutely nothing of note as of late. And our last story looks at WWE cutting out a huge segment at the last minute from SummerSlam. Now, according to various reports, it seems that Vince doesn't make last minute changes to just its television shows, it's also his pay-per-views, as WWE planned to air a huge segment involving the mystery surrounding Roman Reigns' attacker. According to Shepard, so they wrote out the big segment planned with Roman, Rowan, Bryan, and ended the show with boring babyface Seth Rollins beating Brock Lesnar again. It looks like we're in for more boring Seth and Becky on Raw. Yikes. Whilst many, even ourselves, would argue the ending to the show was well executed with Rollins closing out, it's a shame we didn't get any segments to further the storyline other than an irate Eric Rowan who came out to destroy Buddy Murphy, as snitches get stitches. Hopefully WWE reserved the huge segment for either Raw or SmackDown Live, closing out the show with a bang. Well, that's the news for today. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below, subscribe if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.